Pause right now. Before you scroll, before you doubt, before you tell yourself this message isn't for you, take one breath and place your hand on your heart. If you are watching this, it is not an accident. You were called here. Not by algorithms, not by coincidence, but by divine timing. This is your moment to listen, to receive, and to finally relax into the truth that heaven has already assigned your provision. Stay with this message, because what you hear next may be the confirmation your soul has been begging for. Being chosen does not mean life becomes easy. It means life becomes intentional, long before provision shows up in visible form. There is an unseen season where the soul is shaped, stretched, and strengthened. Most people only recognize blessing when it looks like money, opportunity, or recognition. But for the chosen one, the real work begins much earlier, in silence, in waiting, in moments where faith is tested without applause. Preparation is not a delay tactic. It is divine intelligence at work, making sure that when provision arrives, it does not crush the very person it was meant to elevate. If abundance came before maturity, it would become a burden instead of a gift. That is why the chosen one is often placed in situations that feel limiting, confusing, or unfair. These seasons are not meant to break you. They are meant to teach you how to stand without external support. When nothing is guaranteed, character is revealed. When resources are scarce, discernment sharpens. You learn what truly matters, what you can live without, and what you must protect at all costs. God is not withholding from you. God is building capacity within you. Preparation often looks like being overlooked, misunderstood, or forced to walk alone, while others seem to move ahead effortlessly. The chosen one is slowed down intentionally. This is not because you are behind, but because you are being trained to lead yourself before leading outcomes. You are learning patience, not as passive waiting, but as active trust. You are learning obedience without immediate reward. These lessons cannot be rushed, because they form the foundation that provision will rest upon. There is a reason why sudden success destroys so many lives. Without inner grounding, outer increase creates chaos. That is why your journey demanded healing before expansion, awareness before wealth, and humility before recognition. You were being shown your triggers, your fears, your attachment to control, and your tendency to measure worth through results. Every time something was delayed, you were being asked to detach your identity from outcomes and root it in faith. Provision follows identity alignment, not desperation. The chosen one is prepared through pressure, not comfort. Pressure reveals where you still resist trust. It exposes the parts of you that want to rush the process or bypass growth. But each challenge you faced was an invitation to deepen your reliance on something greater than yourself. You learned to pray when you didn't know what to do. You learned to stay honest when shortcuts were tempting. You learned to keep going even when results were invisible. This is the kind of strength that money cannot buy and success cannot teach. Provision is never just about supply. It is about stewardship. What you are being prepared to receive is meant to flow through you, not inflate you. That is why compassion was developed in you through struggle. That is why empathy grew where judgment could have lived. You were being taught how to hold abundance without losing humility, how to receive without becoming entitled, how to have without hardening your heart. These qualities ensure that when provision arrives, it multiplies instead of stagnates. Many people think being chosen means being spared from difficulty, but that the opposite is often true. The chosen one walks through fire not to be punished, but to be purified. Each season of lack refined your focus. Each moment of uncertainty strengthened your intuition. Each closed door redirected you away from paths that would have cost you your peace. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was random. Even the pain had a purpose. Even the waiting had a role. When provision finally shows up, it often feels sudden to the outside world, but inside, you know it was built slowly. What arrives in a moment was formed over years. That is why you will be able to receive without panic and expand without fear. You will recognize that the blessing didn't come late. It came right on time. Preparation ensured that when the door opened, you were already standing steady, grounded, and ready to walk through with wisdom, gratitude, and quiet confidence. Relaxation is not the absence of responsibility. It is the presence of trust. For the chosen one, rest is not escape, and calm is not surrendering effort. It is a deep inner decision to stop fighting what was never meant to be forced. Faith does not live in panic. Faith breathes, listens, and allows space for divine movement. When you relax, you are not giving up. You are stepping back so something greater can step forward. Many were taught that tension equals dedication, that worry proves commitment, that exhaustion is the price of success. But anxiety has never been a spiritual virtue. Fear does not make outcomes better. It only clouds perception. The chosen one learns this the hard way. Often after seasons of overgiving, overthinking, and overworking. Eventually, the soul recognizes that strain blocks clarity and urgency suffocates wisdom. Relaxation becomes an act of alignment, a quiet declaration that you trust the unseen more than the noise around you. To relax in uncertain moments requires courage. It means resisting the urge to control timing, people, and outcomes. Control feels productive, but it is rooted in fear. Faith, on the other hand, is rooted in knowing. When you relax, you acknowledge that you are not alone in the process. You stop behaving as if everything depends on you. And you remember that guidance exists beyond your limited vision. This shift changes everything, because what you stop forcing begins to flow. The chosen one is often driven, sensitive, and deeply aware, which makes relaxation feel uncomfortable at first. Stillness can feel unsafe when life has demanded constant alertness. But rest is not passivity, it is receptivity. In calm states, intuition becomes audible. Answers that were hidden by stress begin to surface. Opportunities appear not because you chased them, but because you were finally able to see them. Relaxation clears the inner channel so direction can arrive without distortion. There is a sacred difference between effort and strain. Effort aligned with faith feels purposeful, steady and clean. Strain feels rushed, heavy and desperate. When you relax, you don't stop showing up. You stop punishing yourself for not seeing immediate results. You understand that timing is not controlled by intensity, but by readiness. What is meant for you does not require self-destruction to obtain. Many breakthroughs happen after surrender, not before it. History is filled with moments where release preceded reward. When the chosen one finally exhales, life responds. Doors open unexpectedly. Support appears from unlikely places. The mind, no longer trapped in survival mode, becomes creative again. Solutions feel inspired rather than forced. This is not coincidence. It is the natural response to faith, embodied through calm. Relaxation also heals the nervous system, which has been carrying survival patterns for far too long. When the body is at ease, the spirit has room to lead. Decisions made from peace carry different outcomes than decisions made from fear. You stop reacting and start responding. You choose rather than scramble. You attract rather than chase. This internal shift is subtle, but its effects are profound. The world may misunderstand your calm and call it laziness or lack of ambition, but the chosen one knows better. Rest is not disengagement, it is strategic faith. It is the confidence to believe that what is assigned to you cannot miss you. You no longer rush because you trust that divine timing is precise. You no longer panic because you understand that delay is not danger. Relaxation allows gratitude to replace pressure. Instead of obsessing over what is missing, you begin to notice what is already working. This gratitude strengthens faith and expands awareness. You realize that peace itself is a form of provision. From that place, receiving becomes natural because you are no longer blocking it with fear. When you relax, you make space for grace. You send a message to the unseen that you trust the process even when you don't understand it. This trust is powerful. It shifts the energy around you. It signals readiness without force. And in that calm, faithful posture, life begins to meet you halfway, moving toward you with ease, precision, and quiet certainty. Provision is not something you wrestle into existence. It is something that responds to alignment. After obedience, the weight of provision was never meant to stay on human shoulders. Obedience is the assignment. Provision is the response. Many people reverse this order and exhaust themselves, trying to secure outcomes before honoring direction. But for the chosen one, the moment obedience is fulfilled, responsibility shifts. What you were never meant to carry alone is taken over by divine order. Obedience is not about perfection, it is about willingness. It is choosing integrity when shortcuts are available, choosing patience when pressure demands speed, choosing faith when logic offers fear. Every time you obeyed without seeing results, you were building spiritual credibility. You were saying yes when it was uncomfortable, when it cost you relationships, status, or immediate comfort. Those moments did not go unnoticed. They were recorded in ways beyond human measurement. Once obedience is established, striving becomes interference. Constant worry after alignment is not humility. It is doubt disguised as responsibility. You begin to think it is your job to make things happen, to force doors open, to ensure outcomes through anxiety. But obedience already activated provision. Faith does not require panic to function. When you continue to carry what was already surrendered, you delay the flow you are asking for. Provision arrives differently when it is handled by God rather than fear. It is not always loud or immediate, but it is precise. Needs are met before they become emergencies. Resources appear through channels you could not predict. Support shows up at the exact moment it is required. What looks like coincidence is actually coordination. You stop chasing and start receiving because alignment created access. Obedience teaches trust, and trust creates peace. That peace is not passive, it is powerful. It keeps you from making desperate decisions that compromise your future. It keeps you grounded when things accelerate. It allows you to recognize opportunities without rushing into traps. Provision without peace would only create new problems. That is why peace often arrives before supply. Many struggle, not because provision is absent, but because obedience was partial. Selective obedience creates instability. You cannot ask for divine covering while resisting divine correction. The chosen one learns that obedience includes surrendering timing, methods, and expectations. When you stop telling God how the blessing should arrive, you remove resistance. When you release control, provision moves freely. Provision is not always money first. Sometimes it arrives as clarity, as direction, as the right connection, as protection from the wrong opportunity. These forms of provision are just as valuable because they preserve your purpose. What you do not receive can be as important as what you do. Obedience sharpens discernment, so you recognize both. After obedience, your role shifts from forcing to stewarding. Stewarding faith means staying consistent, ethical, and grounded even when results are slow. It means continuing to show up without demanding proof. It means honoring the process without resentment. Stewardship signals readiness. It tells heaven you can be trusted with more because you respected less. The chosen one often struggles with guilt when resting, as if peace means irresponsibility. But rest after obedience is confirmation, not complacency. It is the posture that says the seed is planted and the soil is fertile. Growth is happening, even when you cannot see it. Roots form in darkness before fruit appears in light. Provision handled by God does not create dependency, it creates stability. You become less reactive, less fearful, less attached to outcomes. You stop measuring your worth by results and start recognizing value through obedience. This internal shift is what sustains provision once it arrives. When you obey, you are not guaranteeing ease, but you are guaranteeing support. You are not promised a struggle-free life, but you are promised that needs will be met in ways that protect your spirit. This is why you can breathe now. You did what was asked of you. The rest is not yours to manage. The burden has shifted. The responsibility has changed hands. And what is released into divine care is handled with precision, timing, and purpose. Money does not respond to panic. It responds to clarity. Fear tightens the mind, constricts perception, and narrows possibility. When fear dominates, decisions become reactive, short-sighted, and desperate. The chosen one learns that fear is not just an emotion. It is a signal that trust has been replaced by survival mode. And survival mode cannot sustain flow. It can only grasp. Money flows where fear is absent, because absence of fear creates openness, discernment, and alignment. Fear convinces you that there is never enough time, never enough opportunity, never enough support. From that mindset, every move feels urgent, and every outcome feels threatening. You rush into decisions to avoid loss, rather than move toward purpose. You accept less than you deserve, because you are afraid of having nothing. This fear repels abundance, because it communicates instability. Money, like energy, moves toward confidence and away from desperation. When fear dissolves, space opens. The mind becomes quiet enough to recognize value instead of chasing validation. You stop competing and start positioning. You stop reacting to pressure and start responding to opportunity. This is not accidental. Fearlessness creates presence, and presence attracts resources. People trust calm. Opportunities trust clarity. Flow follows those who are not internally fragmented by anxiety. The chosen one is often tested financially through fear, before being trusted with flow. Not because fear is sinful, but because fear reveals attachment. When money is idolized or feared, it gains power over behavior. When fear is released, money becomes a tool instead of a threat. You no longer chase it for safety. You allow it to arrive as support. This shift changes everything. Fear makes you overwork, undercharge, overgive, or undersell yourself. It convinces you that rest is dangerous and boundaries are risky. But abundance requires boundaries. Flow requires self-trust. When fear is absent, you honor your worth without apology. You say no without guilt. You wait without panic. These choices signal readiness for increase. Money flows toward those who can hold it without trembling. Not because they are better, but because they are grounded. Fear creates leaks. You gain but cannot keep. You receive but cannot multiply. You attract but cannot sustain. Calm stabilizes. Calm organizes. Calm multiplies. This is why inner peace often precedes outer prosperity. When fear leaves, intuition sharpens. You sense when to move and when to pause. You recognize the right moment without forcing timing. You notice opportunities others miss because they are distracted by urgency. Fear narrows vision. Peace expands it. Expanded vision creates access to new streams, new ideas, and new collaborations. The absence of fear also changes how you handle loss. You stop interpreting setbacks as threats to survival and start seeing them as redirection. This resilience makes you magnetic. People and opportunities are drawn to those who are not easily shaken. Money follows stability because stability preserves value. Fear tells you money is scarce. Peace shows you money is circulating. It is moving through systems, people, ideas, and timing. When you stop fearing lack, you stop blocking flow. You trust that what leaves creates room for what arrives. Generosity becomes natural, not forced. Gratitude replaces anxiety. These states accelerate circulation. Money is not attracted to avoidance of effort, but it is repelled by inner chaos. When fear is absent, effort becomes focused instead of frantic. You work with intention, not compulsion. You create from inspiration, not pressure. This quality of action produces results that compound rather than exhaust. The chosen one eventually learns that fear is the real poverty. Not the absence of money, but the absence of trust. When trust is restored, money responds. It shows up through ideas, alignment, and timing. It flows because nothing inside you is resisting it anymore. No guilt, no desperation, no self-sabotage, no urgency disguised as ambition. Just calm movement, clear intention, and steady faith that what is meant to support your assignment will find you effortlessly and stay with you sustainably. Overflow is not something you run after. It is something that catches up to you when you are in the right position. Chasing creates exhaustion, comparison, and constant dissatisfaction. Alignment creates ease, focus, and clarity. The chosen one learns that effort without alignment drains energy, while alignment multiplies effort. When your inner world matches your assignment, life responds without resistance. Chasing is rooted in fear of missing out. It convinces you that if you stop moving, you will be left behind. This mindset keeps you busy but disconnected. You pursue what looks successful rather than what feels true. Over time, this creates inner conflict because the soul knows when it is off path. Overflow cannot settle where there is constant inner tension. It requires coherence, not chaos. Alignment begins with honesty. It asks you to admit when something no longer fits, even if it once did. It requires releasing roles, habits, and goals that were formed from survival rather than purpose. This release can feel risky because it looks like loss before it looks like gain. But every realignment removes friction. What you let go of creates space for what can actually sustain you. When you are aligned, decisions become simpler. You no longer debate every option or second guess every move. You know what to say yes to and what to decline. This clarity saves energy. Saved energy becomes momentum. Momentum attracts opportunity. This is how overflow builds naturally, without strain. Chasing keeps you externally focused. You measure yourself against others and adjust your path to compete. Alignment turns you inward. You measure progress by peace, clarity, and consistency. This inward stability makes you magnetic. People sense when you are anchored. Opportunities trust those who are not constantly shifting direction. Overflow flows through alignment because alignment creates integrity. What you think, feel, and do begin to match. There is no inner conflict sabotaging progress. When your actions reflect your values, your nervous system relaxes. From this relaxed state, creativity increases. Solutions appear without force. Ideas feel inspired rather than pressured. This quality of creation produces lasting results. Many miss overflow because they chase outcomes instead of honoring process. They want results without refinement, reward without readiness. Alignment values preparation. It allows growth to happen in the correct order. Roots form before fruit. Structure forms before scale. When overflow arrives through alignment, it does not collapse because it was built on coherence. Chasing also creates attachment. You grip outcomes tightly, fearing loss. This attachment blocks flow because it resists change. Alignment allows movement. You adapt without panic. You adjust without self-betrayal. You understand that what is meant to grow will grow, and what is meant to fall away will fall away. This trust keeps channels open. The chosen one often learns alignment through discomfort. Life pushes you out of places that no longer match who you are becoming. These moments feel like rejection, but they are correction. When you follow these corrections, instead of resisting them, life reorganizes around you. Support shows up. Timing improves. Effort feels lighter. Overflow does not come from doing more. It comes from doing what is yours. When you stay in your lane, you stop leaking energy into comparison, proving, and rushing. This containment strengthens focus. Focus compounds results. Compounded results create overflow. When you stop chasing, you begin receiving. Not because you stopped moving, but because you stopped forcing. Your actions become clean, intentional, and well-timed. You work from conviction rather than anxiety. This difference is subtle but powerful. Alignment also teaches patience. You stop demanding immediate proof. You trust unseen progress. This patience keeps you steady during growth phases that look quiet on the outside. Many quit here because nothing appears to be happening. But alignment ensures that when growth breaks the surface, it does so with strength. Overflow is the natural outcome of sustained alignment. It arrives without drama, without burnout, without constant struggle. It feels like life cooperating rather than resisting. You recognize that you didn't attract abundance by chasing it, but by becoming someone who could hold it without losing direction, peace, or integrity. Faith is not only what brings the blessing, it is what keeps the blessing alive. Many believe faith is needed only in seasons of lack. But the greater test comes after the breakthrough. When the doors open, when resources increase, when life finally begins to flow, faith becomes the anchor that prevents overflow from turning into excess, pride, or distraction. What arrives through faith must be sustained by faith, or it will slowly drain away. The moment blessing arrives, a new pressure appears. Comfort tempts forgetfulness, ease tempts self-reliance. Success whispers that you no longer need the same depth of trust that carried you through struggle. This is where many lose momentum. Not because the blessing was wrong, but because the posture changed. Faith is not proven by receiving. It is proven by remaining grounded once receiving becomes normal. Faith sustains flow by keeping gratitude alive. Gratitude is not politeness, it is awareness. It reminds you that what you have is not guaranteed, not owned, not self-created. Gratitude keeps the heart soft. A soft heart stays open. An open heart allows flow to continue. The moment entitlement replaces gratitude, stagnation begins quietly, almost invisibly. When blessing arrives, fear often changes form. It no longer fears lack, it fears loss. This fear can create control, hoarding, and anxiety disguised as responsibility. Faith counters this by restoring trust. It reminds you that the same source that provided once can provide again. You stop gripping what you have and start stewarding it. Stewardship invites its increase. Control restricts it. Faith also sustains flow by preserving humility. Humility does not mean shrinking yourself. It means remembering your alignment. You understand that success did not elevate your worth. It expanded your assignment. Humility keeps you teachable. It keeps you listening. It keeps you aware of when adjustments are needed. Flow continues where humility allows correction. Blessing amplifies whatever is already inside. If faith is present, peace expands. If fear is present, anxiety multiplies. That is why inner work cannot stop when outer work succeeds. Faith keeps the inner foundation strong, so expansion does not collapse it. You remain consistent even when life becomes easier. Consistency builds longevity. Faith sustains flow by protecting purpose. When resources increase, distractions increase too. New options, new desires, new pressures compete for attention. Faith keeps your vision clear. You remember why you started. You remember who you serve. You remember what matters. This clarity prevents drift. Drift is the silent killer of abundance. There is also a temptation to measure yourself differently after blessing arrives. You may begin to compare upward, chasing bigger outcomes, faster growth, louder validation. Faith grounds you back into sufficiency. It teaches contentment without complacency. You grow without striving. You expand without losing peace. Faith allows you to give without fear. Giving is not about loss. It is about circulation. What is held too tightly cannot move. Faith understands that generosity does not deplete. It multiplies. Not always immediately. Not always visibly, but always meaningfully. Flow is sustained through movement, not storage. After blessing arrives, faith becomes quieter but deeper. It is no longer desperation-driven. It is relationship-driven. You trust not because you need proof, but because you have history. You've seen provision before. You've survived without it. Now you learn to walk with it responsibly. Faith also sustains flow during inevitable challenges that still come. Blessing does not eliminate difficulty. It changes context. Problems still arise, but faith keeps them from becoming crises. You respond instead of react. You adjust instead of collapse. This stability preserves momentum. The chosen one understands that flow is not automatic. It is relational. It responds to posture, intention, and alignment. Faith keeps that relationship alive. It keeps you listening, even when things are going well. It keeps you grounded, even when things are expanding. It keeps the channel clear long after the breakthrough moment has passed, ensuring that what arrived as a blessing continues as a sustainable, purposeful, and life-giving flow. Relax, chosen one. You didn't miss your moment. You were being prepared for it. What's coming won't require force. It will require faith. And faith is already alive in you. Stay with this message. Let it anchor you. Because the shift you've been praying for doesn't begin with money. It begins with trust.